Hi everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar, Regression Analysis Using Spreadsheets in FCS Express 6. I am Amanda Dixon, a Technical Applications Specialist with Novo software. And for those of you who may not know us, we're based out of sunny Glendale, California, and we've been providing data analysis and reporting solutions for researchers worldwide for nearly 20 years now. And before we really jump into the meat of today's topic, I just want to highlight a few more webinars that are coming up in the series. So tomorrow we're going to be discussing immunotyping. It's starting at the same time. We'll also start at the same time on Friday to do bar and pie charts for integrated reporting. Next week we'll be highlighting all the SPADE and data transformation tools now available in FCS Express on Wednesday the 31st. And then in several weeks after that, we'll be doing a joint webinar highlighting spectral flow cytometry and data analysis techniques. So just like this webinar, you can always go to our website, denovosoftware.com, to register. And for the web page, if you go down to the home page right here, this is where you can choose the ones to register for. And you can also access some of the latest ones that have been recorded, and even click more to go to the whole library across all the versions. So this is a really great resource if you're brand new to FCS Express or just wanting to dig into the software a little bit more, because we cover basic overviews. We really highlight special features and dig into more advanced applications or strategies or tools to better explain it. So whatever you want to learn about, you can spend as little or as much time as you need at your convenience exploring the software. Now for today's presentation, we're just going to show you a few of the basics of regression analyses and really working with other tools within the software to quickly generate those downstream analyses, calculations, and results. So we'll go over inserting scatter with regression plots. They're a special type of 2D plot you'll know how to use very quickly and easily. And in the course of this time period, we're going to cover 3 different kind of examples. So you can actually use scatter with regression plots with sample files. So you can actually do FCS or CSV to fit them with all different regression model types. We'll also build custom data using spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are new to version 6 if you've been using version 5 or currently or previously, and you use custom data tables. Those have now been replaced with spreadsheets, so you'll be able to read those from version 5 layouts, but moving forward you'll just build spreadsheets for those custom data sets. And then the last example, we'll go through plate-based image data. So we'll actually use data files and heat maps to refine our gating strategy and population analysis, and then build a dose response curve from that. So a few different examples highlighting how easy it is to use and pull up the fit parameters and change those sorts of things. So we'll cover the different types available and how to edit the visual properties as well as the fit parameters of each curve fitting. And once we derive those curves, we're actually going to show you how to pull up the model statistics and parameters, which will be tokens in the software, so we can quickly and easily display them anywhere in the layout, just like other objects or statistics you may have done previously. And then we can actually show how to do more custom calculations from those fit parameters or statistics to do further analysis and actually get to your final result. So with that, we'll begin with the first example. And here I'm just in a blank layout. So if you're brand new to FCS Express, we have a ribbon tab interface along the top. I have a white and gray space, printable space, and more of a sandbox area, non-printable area. I can insert a tab or go to the Insert tab and insert plots in any way, also shapes and spreadsheets. So we'll just start with the data file first. I'm going to choose a density one, and I'm just going to click and draw it out here so it's rather large so everyone can see, and choose a data file. So for this data file, it's actually based on some beads. I'm going to pull up the fluorescent parameters, and we can see here there's a pretty linear display of the data, unstained negatives. So what we can actually do is insert a scatter plot with regression as well. So that's actually a little bit further to the right, and I'll use that same data file to display the data. So I'll choose the first one, and I'll change those parameters as well. Now notice as soon as we insert a scatter plot with regression, we immediately have a fit. So by default, the scatter with regression plots will display a linear curve. We can change that. We can do it very quickly and easily. I can also come over here and make gates to refine my regression analysis. So maybe I don't want to include the negatives. I can do that quickly and easily by making a gate. And we'll just call this our beads gate. So here's my beads gate. I'm just going to drag and drop it on my regression curve. And now we can see I've excluded those events down here. If I move this gate, the information is going to change, the plots are going to be displayed within that event, and the line will update as well. Now, to edit your regression fit is rather easily done. So just like any other plot, you can double-click the scatter with regression plot, or you can right-click and choose format. Once we're in the format window, there's a subcategory for the scatter with regression plots called regression fit. And this is where you can define your regression or multiple curves. So within each plot, we can actually display one or more curves, and here's just our linear one. Now from the drop-down, I'm going to move this over to the side. We can see that there are types. Now we support nearly 20 different types, and if we wanted to add more, we could. And to do that is rather easily done. I can just come back over here to my model list and click Add. And as it populates, we can just keep on going through the list and adding them. I can change it if I needed to, and say Preview. So now we have two different curves being displayed, one in red and one in blue. If I wanted to, I could change the thickness, so I can come back over to Overlays and make it a little bit more easily viewed by choosing these two. Now, these are treated as overlays just like any other 2D plot in FCS Express. So I'm going to choose the linear and 4-parameter logistic curve. And then all the way down here, I'm going to change the connecting lines width. So I'm going to change it to connecting lines, and I'll just say something like 5 to make it thicker. And now we can see those lines have updated. I can also change the dashing, the coloration, all that sort of fun stuff, but for now I'll just change the color. And we'll go back to regression fit. Now that we can see these a little bit more easily, I'll show you how you can change the properties. So let's say OK, and I'm going to move this a little bit further to the right and come back to that formatting window. Now, for the regression fits, by default, we display 30 dots to fit the curve. You can increase the number of dots used to draw the line, or you can reduce it. So here, if I'm in my linear model, which is the red line here, I can change it to 4, hit Preview, and now we can see it's less smooth than the previous version. So that's all that is happening there. And if I wanted to, even though we're using fluorescent data, I could actually change my parameters. So for the linear regression curve, we're going to have your slope, your intercept, and your R-squared are going as a fit. Now, it automatically calculates each one based on the data, but you can actually fix each parameter or all of them or none of them. So here I'm just going to change this intercept to 0 and preview that option. And now we can see the red line's been dropped down to intersect at 0. If I don't want to keep that change, I can actually restore it or cancel it, and it goes back to where it was. Any questions so far about inserting a scatter plot or making the curves, editing the curves, anything like that? Perfect. So I'm just going to come up here and remove this logistic curve and say OK. So now we'll just work with one curve at a time. Once you have your curve displayed and edited as you want, you can actually take those parameters we saw in the regression fit category and insert them within the layout. So for beginning, I'm just going to come over here to the Insert tab and choose Text Box and just draw a little box down here. So if you're brand new to FCS Express, this is a text box. I can type whatever I want. I can actually enter various tables, whatever I need. For now, I'm just going to insert statistics. So I'm going to insert my fit name. I'm going to insert the parameters of M, B, and R-squared, and show you how quickly and easily we can add them to the layout and how they'll actually change as we change the data. So for here, I'm going to make my font a little bit bigger. So we'll say something like 30. There we go. And now I can actually insert tokens in a variety of ways. If you're brand new to inserting tokens or using them, we'll go through all the steps so you know how to do it. And for starters, I can right-click within this field and I can insert. Insert token allows me to derive specifically the exact token used from whichever plot in the layout that I want to use. So for this example, I'm just going to pull up statistic. And now I get to derive the plot type. So I don't want the density plot with my actual data files. I want the regression plot. So I'll choose my regression plot. Here's a little thumbnail for display under the data source category. Now to pull up my fit name, I just go to the statistic category and I can edit a few options. So regression plots are going to have the same 2D statistics you're familiar with the other plot types, but also you can choose regression parameter statistics from the selected statistic dropdown, which is what I'll use to pull up all these model bits of information. So here I do that. It automatically recognizes my linear curve that has been displayed, and I can choose model name. So quickly and easily, there it is. If I changed the model, it would change the name, everything else. So if I come down here to my M, I can actually click and drag my plot into that text box, and I can choose a token. So when you're pulling up your 2D regression plot statistics, you're going to choose statistic token, say OK, and now we're back in that edit statistic window. We don't have to choose the plot because we actually drag and drop the plot into it. We just have to change the progression or to the regression parameter statistics options, and then we can go in and copy in M. I can copy and paste these tokens, so I can copy and paste it down. I can double click to change it to B or my intercept and just keep on going from there. So I'll do it one more time with the Control-C, Control-V function and insert my R squared. I can actually edit this text box and I can put it into my actual plot. And if I come over here and change the data, again, the line's changing and the related parameters and statistics are changing. So I can change gates, I can come up to my data list, I can change the different data files one by one and see the information updating. Your regression plots can be included with batch processing. If you've never done batch processing before, we explain it in detail in a previous webinar, so I invite you to view it. But for simplicity's sake, I'll just show you how quickly and easily we can batch it out to Excel. So I'll go to the Batch tab. Under Batch Actions, I already have an Excel built. All I have to do now is choose which information to add. So here I can add my fit parameters. I can drag and drop and choose a keyword to identify my file. I'm going to type in $FIL, but you can also click on the ellipsis to identify the keyword you want from that data file. So I'm going to say OK and move it up here. And now I'm ready to just hit run. So it's going to go through the different data files, and now we can see for each file we have the associated slope, intercept, and goodness of fit. And that's essentially the quick and easy basics using your FCS files and your CSV files. So you can actually fit your data as it falls, use case to adjust those events displayed, and present it however you wish. So this is just the first example. We're going to move into a little bit more advanced example doing titration. So I'll actually close this and go into a titration experiment. Now, oftentimes when you're doing a titration experiment, you may be simply exporting the data out, copying and pasting it, trying to just eyeball essentially where the curve plateaus. But in FCS Express, we can actually build in all the plots and gates, use a spreadsheet to insert that information, plot it in the regression plot, and then actually interpolate the optimal amount of antibody to use, which is what I'm going to show you how to do now. So just a general overview of this analysis, what we have are basically data plots on the second page, so 7-point dose response curve starting from 0.16 all the way up to 10 microliters. These are just the 2D plots for the marker fluorescence 8 versus scatter, all the way going from low to high, across and down. And then on the summary page, we just have our gating strategy, and we'll add our spreadsheet and scatter with regression plot. So here you can see that we have a size gate, and within that size gate, we've created 2 gates, lymphocytes and monocytes. So the monocytes are going to constitutively express CD64, so they'll be treated as a positive population, and then we'll compare the signal-to-noise ratio using lymphocytes as a negative population and pull those median values from each concentration. Now as I move this gate, if I change my view, I'll show you everything is live and connected. So here I can come over here and move it. All the information is going to update, so you can see pretty quickly that as I move the days or change the data, my regression will update once I have it built. Now to use a spreadsheet, we're just going to go to the Insert tab, and from the Insert tab, choose New under Spreadsheet. I'm going to call this spreadsheet Titration. You can call it whatever you want. You don't have to name it, and say OK. So here I'm just going to move it off to the side. And I'm actually just going to format it a little quickly. So I'll just choose these columns to make the font a little bit bigger. So with spreadsheets, there are two hidden tabs that you can use to insert formulas of any type. So just like Excel, all those references you know and love are available in FCS Express 6. And then I'm just going to come over here to Layout and edit the text. So we'll just make it a little bit bigger so we can all read it. Perfect. All right, now just like drag and dropping plots and gates into text boxes, we can do the same thing with spreadsheets. And with spreadsheets, we can also drag and drop files from the data list. So I can actually choose all my data files in the data list and drag and drop them over. So once I have this little plus sign, I can drop it into cell A1 and choose the information I want to enter without having to manually type it over and over again. So for this first column, I'm going to insert the keyword for the concentration. And the reason I'm doing it is so that if data changes or data files or new experiments are run, I don't have to manually enter that. I can just use the keyword written at the time of acquisition. So now if I click on the ellipsis and scroll all the way down through the standard keywords into the ones I've added at acquisition, we can see here I have a numeric value for concentration. And I can say OK. And now all of those concentrations have been tossed in for each data file. I can change the way the text is entered. I can make annotations. I can say in microliters. I can also resize my columns just like I would in Excel by double-clicking, and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to drag and drop a few more times to enter information. So first I'm going to choose the statistic token. And for this, all I have to do is choose a parameter. So I'm going to scroll down and choose my FL8 log and my lymphocytes gate. So I'm just going to pull the negative population's median value for each data file or concentration and say OK. So there it is. I'm actually going to change this title to negative just so we know where we are and resize that. I'm going to drag and drop one more time to choose another statistic, and this time for FL8, instead of choosing my negative population, I'm going to choose my monotype population gate and say OK. And choose median. So we'll change this to positive. And now I have a few bits of information I can use to derive my curve. Now I could plot these as they are now, or I can come in and do a calculation for signal to noise ratio. And to do that in a spreadsheet, just like Excel, I can key enters, the equal sign, click on the cell I want to use, I'll put the divide sign, put in my negative cell, and enter. So this formula can actually be copied in down, so I can actually just copy it down. And if I double click, we can see the cell references update appropriately. So now I really quickly and easily have built a custom data table in my spreadsheet to use for my scatter with regression plot. So now that I actually have my table built, I can quickly and easily just select it, and then from the Insert tab, like we did earlier, insert my scatter with regression. So if I come down here and draw it, we'll see here that it's immediately populated. It's taken the name of that and is pulling up the columns A and B. Now I can change this really easily, just like I would change parameters in another 2D plot. So I can change it to D, I can change it to A, whatever I want. And I can switch this back, so it's A versus D. Oops. And then rename my column. So within the spreadsheets, you have the option to use the first row as a label. And I'll do that right now. So right-click and format. And then under spreadsheet data, I can say use the values in the first row as labels. By default, it's unchecked, so you can just come in here and check it. And now we can see that information is updated. So I can change it if I wanted to, just to better annotate my graph. Now we can see this linear fit is probably not appropriate for my antibody titration, and I'd be graphing my data better or fitting it better with a regression for Michaelis-Menten. So I can just double click that plot, and now instead of linear, I can just switch it over to Mc-Menten. If I hit preview, we can see a much better curve. I can also add information for error bars and things like that, but for now we're just going to focus on a very basic Michaelis-Menten fit. So here you can see the parameters. We have the Vmax, the Km, and R squared again. And what we'll actually do now is we'll insert a second spreadsheet and use the Vmax from this plot to identify the optimal amount of antibody to use. So traditionally, if you were doing a titration, you might realize that, oh, here's roughly where my plateau begins, and kind of roughly figure out where it is. In FCS Express, we can actually do calculations using the parameters to derive the exact amount of antibody to use or whatever downstream bit of information you need. So to do that, I'm just going to make a new one and call this amount of antibody to use, and use my statistics from this Michaelis-Menten fit to actually derive that information. So here I'm just going to say Vmax, and if I wanted to, I could define 90% of Vmax of where I want to define my optimal antibody to use. And then from these two bits of information, automatically calculate the amount of antibody used using our interpolation. So with the regression plots, we can do an interpolation of y to x or x to y, however your data are arranged, to precisely figure out that amount. So I'll say here. And now all I have to do is just drag and drop again. So I'm just going to drag and drop into cell A2 and choose a statistic. Back into that stat window, I'm going to change from select to statistic. For 2D, I'm going to go to regression to parameter. You can see is identify Michaelis-Menten, and I'll just choose my Vmax. So here, there's my Vmax. Now to make it 90%, I can just type in the equal sign in B2, 0.9. Multiplication, just like in Excel, and then choose that. And now I have my 90% of Vmax, which I'll be using to derive the amount of antibody. Now to do an interpolation, it's really easily done in the software. So with your spreadsheet, we'll just go all the way up to these tabs and choose formulas. And under statistical, for the reference library, I'm just going to scroll down the list and choose regression interpolation. So if I go down a little bit more, we can see here that I can choose a regression plot, y to x, and I just need 3 bits of information. So the first bit of information you need will be the plot number, and the plot number is assigned when the plot is created, the overlay of the regression, and the y value. So to find that information, I can just hover over here, and we can see below that the plot number is 84. It's a regression type. We've named it titration. So I can just come into here and enter that 84 value. And before I go any further, I'm just going to make this a little bit larger so we can read it more easily. We'll just come down. Perfect. So notice it's giving me a warning because I still need 2 more bits of information. Now to find the overlay information, I'll show you where to find that. If I double click on my plot and go to the overlays category, this is where we get the list of overlays and the numbers. So the first one is actually the titration data, and the second one is actually the number we'll use with our Michaelis-Menten. So you can see here that I've entered the 2, and now one more bit of information, my value I actually want to derive from the y-axis to determine the x value. So here I'm actually just going to go back and choose this cell and hit return. And now I can see that the optimal amount of antibody to use is 2.13. And if I go back and change any of these gates, all this information is going to be replotted, recalculated in all the spreadsheets, regraphed in the regression analysis, and reinterpolated. Any questions at all about building out a regression with custom data in a spreadsheet or doing interpolations? If at any time you have a question, just feel free to write it in and we'll get to it. So this is kind of covering point 3. Now you can quickly and easily just load your data, do a titration, and calculate it out. If I needed to, in addition to batch processing, I could actually just go straight to export and send it to my PowerPoint. So I just send it to PowerPoint, give it a name, a location, save it, and then actually just export all the pages, include objects that are off the page if I needed to show those calculations, and go from there. So we'll just come down and say OK. So here I'm going to show all pages. So not only am I going to show my summary page, I'm going to also show my data plots and say OK. And now it's generating the output, PowerPoint is launching, and we can see here I have my 2 spreadsheets, I have my first page, I have my regression, and then I have the raw data, which is what I would get in another program. But in FCS Express, everything's integrated and connected, so everything updates live. All right, so I'm going to close this PowerPoint and move on to our third example, which is actually using imaging data. So we'll close this. And just briefly, we're not going to go into building heat maps. We actually have detailed webinars on that as well. I just want to give you an overview of the experimental design on this page. So here we can see that there are 2 compounds. So in blue we have wortmannin, and then in yellow down here we have actually LY294.002. The outer columns are just our controls and empty wells, and then across left to right we have increasing concentrations. So if I go to my plots on the second tab or page, we can see each column, columns 3 through 11, are being displayed. And if I open up my gating strategy for you, you will see that these are all the wells in aggregate for LY294.002. So here we're just deriving these gates because what we're actually going to do is a dose response curve based on the percent of translocated cells in blue for each concentration. So if I come over here to my IC-EC50, this is kind of a rough summary of that. Here's my scatter with regression. And if I change my view, I'll show you the spreadsheet I built earlier that's showing that information. So here we just typed in which columns and dragged and dropped the gates for each one. So if I come over here and move this master gate, all the gates on that second page are going to update. Everything's being recalculated in the spreadsheet and replotted in its downstream scatter with regression plot. So now all we have to do is fit it. And for this example, I'll show you 2 different dose response curves. So we're going to derive EC50s from a 4-parameter, 5-parameter logistic curve. And so you can see how quickly and easily you can edit those as well. But really, we've already built the spreadsheet. We're sourcing it over here. And now we just double-click or right-click and choose Format. And from there, we're just going to update the information for regression fit. So here, there's nothing in the list. I'm going to add 2. And I'm just going to update those to 4-parameter and 5-parameter logistic curves and hit Preview. And now you can see we have those 2 curves. I'll go to Overlays and make them a little bit wider so we can see them a little bit more easily. Same as we did earlier. And say OK. And now if I come through and move it, we can see those updating. So let's insert some tokens. So I'm actually going to right-click and add a text box in my plot itself. I'm going to move it over here. So I can say 4PL, EC50, and 5PL, EC50. And if I come over here, I'm just going to right-click and insert that token. And we'll choose, just like we did earlier, the related statistics. So we're pulling it up. Now when you add a text box to a plot, it'll give you the option to use the text box on the plot you're using or viewing, or you can change the plot in the list. So I'm actually going to use my plot, my regression plot that I'm displaying, and choose my parameters. So here, we'll just change it over, and I'll say IC50 and OK. I can copy that down, and I'll actually edit this in a moment. So it shows our 5-parameter. All right, and we'll make the font a little bit larger. I'll actually choose all the text this time by Control A. There we go. So now we can see those bits of information updating. Now if I come back and move the date, we'll see how they are different, how they're changing. And we can also go back and review our dating strategies. So just a little highlight for the heat maps themselves, we can create well dates. So here we have a single well being plotted for a picture plot, and here are just some various dates being displayed for percent of translocated and percent of non-translocated. So actually if we wanted to see each well that's happening over time, if we think that this might be an outlier here, I can actually right-click that heat map and edit the gate. So if I edit my single well gate, which is down here, I can actually click on this one and all the information is updating. So you can use a lot of the different tools within it to refine your gating strategy, throw out outliers, include additional replicates or aggregates to update that information. So I can come back over here and I can edit another gate. So if I come back down, I can edit my column 5. And here we can see there are those all 4 included highlighted in yellow. So if I hold Control, I can deselect it and I've updated my information. I can undo and it's reverted back. So again, these are just really some of the basic things we can do with regressions. You can do everything in one package to pull in your raw data, analyze it, process it, and also get those downstream statistics very quickly and easily. Any questions about the dose response curves or using the heat maps or the spreadsheets for this example? All right, well, we'll move on and kind of wrap things up. So basically what you've seen here today is that you can quickly and easily build regression analysis and modeling by just inserting scatter with regression plots, updating your data, changing your dates. So you can use your data files and actually derive the curve fitting from that, or you can build custom data sets and spreadsheets to do your regression analysis. These regression models are going to update in real time and very quickly whenever you change data or dates or anything within your analysis that are related. And then once you've actually built those models, you can pull out the statistics and parameters anywhere, show them for display, put them in a report, wherever you need to go to demonstrate the results of that study. And then basically from there, we can display single or multiple models within a plot at a time. So you can actually compare fits, you can display different bits of information within one plot very conveniently. And of course, as always, we can batch process and export directly to PowerPoint, Excel, PDF, other documents with one click. So if you have any questions, please feel welcome to reach us at support@denovosoftware.com. And if you haven't tried any of these features yet, we encourage you and invite you to actually visit our webpage and download the free 30-day trial. And you can also view recorded webinars. So I'll pull up the webpage one more time to show you where those features are, and then we'll be done. So we come back over here. This is the suite of recorded webinars, so version 6 and previous versions. From the Support tab, you can actually go to Live Help, and you can reach us for a support session, a phone call, anything to help you get started with your own data. And to actually get started testing the software, you can just go to Download and choose Demo. So you can choose our fully functional, all-inclusive feature set in FCS Express 6. Give it a try with your flow, image, and mass cytometry data, and let us know if you need anything at all. So I'll stay on the line for a few more minutes, but if you need anything, you can reach us at any time. Thank you.